Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Corliss.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Morales.
Here.
Nash. Stead.
Here.
Willits.
Here.
5 present, 1 absent.
Great. Well, welcome. I have asked Courtney to kick us off with an overview of the day, but just wanted to tee up our intent today is to share with council information on and from the directors of every department as our first meeting as a new city council. So welcome everybody up for this first official meeting of our districted council. Today you'll hear from department directors, or I don't see any alternates, but maybe they're subs, and from both our departments and the offices in the city. Please ask questions, share feedback. While we won't get to all of it, and won't necessarily be able to answer all the questions today, that'll inform how we tee up work sessions, get you answers via memo or follow-up. And then in next week's meeting, you will hear from the folks in my office that are charged with the city's strategic initiatives. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, you should get a good overview of the work being done both internally to the building to support the operations and business of the city, as well as the work that we do externally for the benefit of the community. Really, all of it's for the benefit of the community. Some you just see more than others. So with that, I'll ask Courtney to kick us off.
Good morning, members of council, Madam Mayor. My name is Courtney Washburn. I'm the chief of staff for the city of Boise, and this microphone is in a weird place it's never been in before. So just give me a moment. There we go. Some of us were joking before this started. It feels like the first day of school. Some of you are far more organized for the first day of school than I am. The good news is I have many directors who were willing and able and excited to share with you what they do for the city and the contributions they make to the community. I am going to open the meeting today, and then I'm going to close the meeting today, but I'll talk a bit about that as we go through this. I just wanted to give a brief reminder that the city's vision is creating a city for everyone. The mission of the city, as you can see here, is what drives our decision-making and our orientation to the city operations. And then I checked this morning to make sure the signs behind me accurately reflect the values of the city. So one city, one team for the greatest good. There's nothing we can't do better, and community experience with WOW. And then the goals for today's meeting, just for a little bit of background, we have not had a meeting like this before. We thought it would be a more comprehensive introduction to the city if we had everybody at the same time with the full council. So we're going to introduce you to the city's leadership team. These are the directors who run the departments and the offices associated with the city. We're going to give a high-level overview of the city's programs and services, and then share insights on city operations. What we've asked the directors to do, and we will likely ask you to do the same as we go through this, is we're trying to avoid a budget build conversation. So we're trying to focus this conversation on who we are and the impact we're striving to have in the community. But have no doubt you will have plenty of opportunities to talk about the budget with these directors. But an introduction that opened the door to budget build is a little complicated, and I think we would miss the impact these departments are hoping to have. And then you'll learn more about city operations if we're successful in this meeting. Just a couple high-level statistics. We have 12 departments. The airport is a department, in case anybody was wondering that. We have 5 offices. 2 of those offices are the office of the city council and the mayor's office. And then we have 2,052 employees. It probably changed since we made the slide. And in the summer, that number jumps quite a bit with largely the temporary work folks do in the summer to support our community programs. And then our current budget is at $747 million. The themes that should run through these slides are the city services and programs. So essentially what we do for the community and for the city, the positive impact we're hoping to have with the services we deliver, And then the evolution of the organization. As I believe you're all aware, the community is growing and evolving, and the city has a responsibility to do the same, to be able to continue to provide the customer service we strive to do. One of those is a more citywide approach, so you're not calling two departments and getting two different answers, or that one department isn't stellar at customer service and another is awesome. Like there are opportunities for improvement there. And then effective, efficient use of resources. We strive to ensure we make the best use of taxpayer dollars. And then a deep commitment to providing service to our community. So the agenda today is the introduction of the offices, the internal shared service. And I don't know if that's, a city buzzword or not, but these are the folks that keep your internet working, allow us to hire people, keep us out of legal trouble, and they're truly the backbone of the city. So it's often forgotten that for the community-facing services to deliver what we expect them to do, that the internal and shared services need to be top-notch as well. And then during these presentations, as the mayor mentioned, my goal is to actually capture your questions and concerns. And that gives me the ability for the next year to return either in work session or memo, some follow-up. And so it's a good thing, I would think, at the end of the day, that I have a long list of unanswered questions or concerns, because then I know what you would like more information on. I imagine the mayor's going to try to run a tight ship today. We've got some talkers among our directors, and we've got to keep on task to be able to get through everyone. And so I didn't name names. I could, but I won't. So I'm going to come back up after and give my best shot at reiterating what I heard to ensure that I capture questions and concerns for follow-up. So that's the plan for the day. Madam Mayor, I can certainly answer any questions, or we can get started.
I think we can probably jump right in. And why don't we start, thanks, Courtney, with the Office of Internal Audit. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Good morning. My name is Brian Murcell. I'm the Director of Internal Audit. The office was established in 2003 with a mission to add value and improve operations in the city. We provide City Council information relevant to that mission. Activities we perform and report on include daily P-card reviews, where we assess the propriety of transactions, weekly accounts payable reviews, where our sampling approach reviews approximately 80 to 90% of the city's weekly cash outflow. Monthly travel expense reviews, where we summarize citywide travel and review for potential tax implications. We perform quarterly payroll reviews, and we perform episodic audits. And those are based on citywide risk assessments that rank orders 5 factors: financial impact, operating profile, staffing and technology, the legal and regulatory environment, and areas of city council, management, or internal audit interest. Things to know about the office. As required by city code, annually, we prepare a proposed audit work plan for council approval. We also report directly to city council. We report weekly to the audit committee, which is comprised of 3 council members. Historically, that's been council leadership and 1 other. And then we report monthly or as necessary to full city council. And accessibility. Once approved, our audit reports and quarterly summaries are posted online for public accessibility. This helps with transparency and also helps to facilitate discussion with peer cities. This slide was not updated. I'll give you a highlight. Our current focus areas revolve around control testing, and we currently have an initiative to mine prior audits to identify individual processes that we can test on a more regular basis. With our episodic audit process, after we complete an audit, it could be 5 to 10 years before we get back into that division for another audit. With this initiative, we'll break out key processes in each area and test a portion of them on a more frequent basis. The goal is to increase overall audit coverage without increasing the staffing size. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Brian?
Brent, first of all, thank you. This is a lot, and I know that, remind me, I think you were promoted last year?
Correct.
Okay, good, because things are running together, but, so thank you. I've been on the audit committee. I've really enjoyed it. I know you do a lot of work, so big thank you. I'm curious, and I'm cognizant of Courtney's instructions, so if there's anything that you would like to do differently that you think would help the public better understand the finances, how we could do anything better in terms of transparency, the world is your oyster. Like if you were king for a day, what would you do? And you don't have to answer that, but I'm really curious because you're the expert in this, and it's a lot, and there's a lot to dig into. And it's really hard for the public to always see. So just curious if there's other things that you'd like to do. And like I said, you don't have to answer today, but I'd like your ideas.
Sure, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, thank you for your thoughts there. That is something near and dear to our hearts. In addition to reporting directly to City Council, we report to the citizens of Boise. And that's the purpose for putting our audit reports online, for that accessibility and transparency there. Periodically, we do get media inquiries for our audits, which is great. Love explaining what we do or adding any color to any information that's being requested. We also put an out-facing email address in case anybody wants to email internal audit directly. That's available as well, but we'll continue to look at that and look at ways that we can better interact with the city going forward.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
This might also be covered in our next audit meeting. I'm new to the audit committee, but would love to better understand how I can add value. As a member of that committee, I've started to receive the emails, but what action should I be taking, or would you like me to be taking as I review those transactions? So again, something we can pin, but would love to learn more about that.
Madam Mayor, Council President Pro Tem Stead, thank you for your thoughts. Always appreciate the non-audit angle. And one of the terrifying things of my position is the random question that can come, but it actually helps me get better and really challenges me to grow in the role. And so I appreciate, and I will continue to appreciate, any non-audit comments or feedback. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Brian.
Thanks.
All right, next up, we have Nicole McKay with the Office of Police Accountability.
Oh, there we go. Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I am Nicole McKay, the Director of the Office of Police Accountability. This office operates with the oversight of the mayor in a 3-council member committee. I look forward to engaging in this office's work together. The mission of this office is to advance fair and professional law enforcement that is responsive to the needs of the community. That mission is advanced through oversight that is proactive, independent, transparent, and community-driven. In line with our mission, the work of this office includes the review and investigation of complaints, appeals, and critical incidents, audits of the investigations of police, the review and recommendations to the mayor and council on policies, procedures, and training for police. What to know about the Office of Police Accountability. This office has been in operation for 25 years and must continue to be responsive to the evolving challenges of policing a growing city. To that end, this office has evolved in name and structure since its creation in 1999 and has existed in this current state since 2021. Last year, this office transitioned to new leadership and staff. I am 4 months into this role now, and supported by a case administrator, an investigator, and legal counsel. One additional hire is coming, an analyst who will assist us in our auditing and research work. Fully staffed, this office will have the resources to diligently support its mission. Moving to my second point, oversight promotes constitutional policing, builds bridges between law enforcement and the public, and increases public trust in policing. This office can achieve this through listening to and communicating with our many stakeholders, providing our community access to information, educating the community on policing practices, and providing an independent process for the community to navigate their policing experience. Finally, effective oversight requires transparency in investigations, audits, records, and communication. Transparency is a high priority, and we are actively working on how to identify and implement best practices. We will continue to collaborate with our internal city departments as well as outside stakeholders to advance that work, which transitions us well to our next slide. Current focus areas. Our first focus area is transparency. The challenge in achieving transparency is balancing the public's interest and the actions of its police force with the need to protect both the integrity of the investigative and prosecutorial process and the privacy of those involved. This work will require a thorough and thoughtful approach. We will be looking at illegal authority and limitations, public records requests, civil claims, listening to our community members, and collaborating with our community leaders to better understand what is working and where we have work to do. The second area of focus is community engagement. Community engagement is critical for meaningful oversight. The people most impacted by the policing need to have an independent office to receive, review, and report on their concerns. I have been fortunate to engage in meaningful outreach and collaboration with both internal and external leaders to support community policing in our city. As you'll hear more from the chief on this, community policing is working proactively with the community to identify, reduce, and prevent issues that impact public safety. Last, but certainly not least, is a focus on professionalism. This office will continue our work with police leadership to document, track, review, and report on professionalism and the customer experience with police. This will recognize individual officers that are excelling, as well as provide training as needed on an individual basis or as a whole. Supporting the shared mission of professionalism will enhance the public's experience with our police and continue to build trust in our community. That concludes my comments, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Well, Nicole, it feels great to be starting this year with, I think, a lot of hope and a lot of confidence in this department. And a lot of that has to do with your professionalism that you've brought to it. So thank you. For our council members who get to interact with you more that are on the OPA committee, we get to see you all the time. Do you have kind of an idea of when the rest of the council will see you throughout the year and what types of things we'll see, what types of meetings those will be?
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Halliburton. I'm told that we are focusing on a meeting towards the end of February for a more complete report from this office. We will have some additional reports out by that time as well, and knock on wood, be fully staffed. So I hope that that is a well-timed meeting for me to really come back and give you a full picture of what's going on in the office substantively.
Wonderful. And then I think we'll see you maybe a couple more times throughout the year. Do we get it? Is it an annual report? Is it?
Yes,
Yes.
Councilmember Halliburton, that's correct. The Office of Police Accountability submits 2 reports to the council. One is, I believe they have historically been done kind of January, June. One is more robust than the other. Given my short tenure in this position so far, I will have for you at the end of February an abbreviated report, and I hope when we have our next meeting, which I'm assuming would be June, July, August timeframe, that would be a full report. A full report will require me to have an auditor on staff to compile all the data and translate it. And we will be doing some things differently in the auditing space. So I'll need a little time to plan and implement that.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Director McKay, thank you. I echo my colleagues' comments. We're really lucky to have you. And I know this is a big job.
Excuse me, council member, could you just lift your mic maybe a bit?
You bet. Can you hear me now? Is that
Yes,
better?
thank
Okay.
you.
A couple of questions when you come back. I'm really curious about the backlog. I know that there was a significant one and you were trying to figure out what had been addressed, what hadn't, and then what kind of processes and systems that you're putting in place to then track that over time to make sure we're not missing things. I know you've had a big lift, so those are the kind of things that I'm looking for and how we're doing things differently in a way that's more effective and efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiltz. I'd be happy to report on that when I come back.
All right, thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
And next up, we've got Maria Wig with Office of Community Engagement.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. Courtney's right. This is like the first day of school. I'm both excited and not going to lie, a little bit nervous. I also am one of the talkers, so I'm going to try to stay within my time limit and hope that my attempts at brevity don't get awkward. Just going to own that to begin with. So my name is Maria Wig. I'm the director of the Office of Community Engagement. I would say when you look at the values of the city, we lead with community experience with WOW. We are charged with overseeing all of the incoming and outgoing communications, public engagement, and constituent services for the city of Boise, as well as a few of our pretty substantial and significant programs. We work with the departments really, really closely to essentially tell the stories of all the incredible work that's being done in a way that connects best with our community members, where they're at and how they want to receive information. So that includes earned and owned media, graphic design, brand management and marketing, communication strategy, very resident-focused messaging. Essentially, if you see something out in the wild that is from the city of Boise, if you hear us in the press, from this slide deck to the collateral that you see as you enter City Hall, community engagement has touched it. We also run language access, community accessibility, which is our compliance with and efforts to go above and beyond the Americans with Disabilities Act, energize our neighborhoods, and are responsible for all of the big community events, think State of the City, and staff appreciation events. So many of you were at Winter Garden Aglow this year. So what to know? We are included with the internal services departments, but we have an external mission to inform, empower, and engage our residents, to really invite our residents to take part in the decision-making process of the city and make sure that the city is very, very accessible to the folks that we serve. We use data-driven best practices to communicate the work of the city and connect our residents to programs, services, and initiatives. So when you look at a slide deck like this, sometimes you're like, oh, this looks pretty. What's really behind the slide deck is making sure that we're presenting information in a way that is additive to the presentation, doesn't distract the presentation, and really helps folks get their message across. We work to remove barriers to participation and include often underrepresented residents in meaningful ways. One thing to kind of point out along those lines, we recently deployed these Pocket Talk devices, which are translation devices that now all of our departments and frontline staff have access to, so that if somebody comes into the city and speaks a language other than English, staff can easily communicate with them with this little device. And Jessica tells me, we piloted this at the library, that it's actually been incredibly helpful for folks that are hard of hearing as well, who used to write notes to librarians, and now librarians are able to use this device. So really thinking about ways to connect us more closely with our community. We do events and graphics and cool stuff too. Our current focus
I'll say that
area-
those cool district posters that everybody had for their
Oh,
districts
yeah.
at swearing in were done by the CE department.
Yes. Please don't complain about the pictures. You'll break Layla's heart. Our current focus areas, we're partnering with IT and some of our other departments, DFA, to identify and implement public engagement software that will seamlessly integrate with some of the other systems that we use for the community to have access to the government. We're continuing to build out our Energize Our Neighborhoods program. We hired recently an amazing program coordinator. She is great and would love to be able to see more capacity in that program. We train and support frontline staff with consistent answers to frequently asked questions. We believe that if you answer the phone at the city of Boise, you should be able to give a resident an answer to something city council has done, to what a certain policy is, in addition to getting your question answered about, I don't know, where to pay your utility bill, for example. We do regular media training for subject matter experts to make sure that folks, especially who do really technical things, are able to translate that into something that your next door neighbor can understand in like a sentence or less, right? As all of you know who you just got done with knocking on doors, sometimes you only have about 2 sentences to get your message across. We help folks do that. And we evaluate and optimize our online experience. So we oversee the website, our YouTube channel, social media channels, and we are constantly looking at the data behind that to figure out how to get better and getting feedback from the community about how to do so as well. So that was as quick as I think I could do it. I will stand for questions.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, everything that you do looks great. I was just telling Jessica earlier how great the advocacy toolkit for the library looks and how much I've shared that out both internally and to other organizations. And it's always nice to know that our stuff is going to look really, really, really good whenever we put it out there. I think that this council is probably going to have a lot of interest in the Energize Our Neighborhoods efforts and staff. And I know that that's a relative, well, actually not that new anymore. It seems like, what, 9 months? How long is?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
she's been here about 9 months,
9
and
months or
we've had
so.
Energize within CE for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and so I think that at some point, everybody would love to get a chance to meet Nicole and kind of get an update about the Energize efforts as they come back on. Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Oh, wait, did you have one? Go ahead. We've got time. I just didn't see that you were asking. Sorry about
It's
that.
all good. First compliment, the CE team are creative geniuses. Like, I cannot believe some of the amazing things that they put together, and it's fun and it's engaging, and I love to see their work. So well done. And I really appreciate the department's work to meet people where they are, because in the world that we have, there are lots of different channels that people are on, and it's not as easy as it used to be. It's really hard to find where people get information. I'm curious about, particularly with the software that you mentioned, how CE is going to use artificial intelligence for any of the answers to the questions that come in. And you don't have to answer that today if you don't have, but this is something that every business in the world is trying to figure out how to manage and do well and be transparent. So I'm curious what our plan is, and will that fall under community engagement, or will it fall into another department?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willits. That is a huge conversation that is starting to happen within the city. I imagine that we will have a citywide approach to it as we grapple with the benefits that come from it, and also the obligations we have to our community to be transparent when and how we're using that. So I would expect future council presentations specifically on that topic.
Yeah, and I'll follow up on that this will extend well beyond CE, that really there need to be policies that guide the use, but acknowledging the benefits, but also the potential problems associated with it. So before we venture into that space with, let's say CE, we will have had larger policy discussions, agreements, and kind of the operations and parameters in place before using it. Thank you. But great question, Lucy, something we've got to all be thinking about. All right, now we will move into our Internal Shared Services Department. Sarah Borden with Human Resources. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you very much. So I'm Sarah Borden. I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Human Resources. And just to get it out there, I did not slip on the ice. There's no workplace injury, just a little maintenance and repair I have going on. So I'm doing just fine. So I want to just talk to you about human resources. Obviously, our people are just the most important thing, certainly in my mind, and probably most, or if not all of us. And we really want to make sure we do a good job of acknowledging and taking care of our employees. The main purpose is to make sure that all of these lovely departments have the people they need to do the work of creating a city for everyone. We also want to make sure that our employees have what they need to be the most successful and enjoy what they come to work and do every day. In order to do that, you can see up here, there's a whole list of functions. Many are very common to HR. Of course, we pay our people. We recruit and hire. We want to make sure that we predict staffing levels and what we need with for that to be successful. And I'll let you read the rest of them. But the two I want to just point out, which is a unique thing for our HR department, is you don't always see risk and safety as part of an HR department. And we feel very fortunate we have that team with us. We want to make sure people don't get injured on the job. We also want to mitigate risk and make sure that we aren't exposed as a city to things that we just shouldn't be exposed to. And then security services, this is the team that is present in City Hall as well as the libraries. And when you come in, you see the ambassador desk, that's our security staff. And they're lovely, friendly people, and hopefully you've gotten to interact with them. But we're really thankful that we have them, and they're well-trained and ready to do what needs to be done. So what to know? When COVID hit, we all remember that, it really flipped the entire function of HR on its head around the world. We're still sort of figuring our way through all of that, but there are some really interesting things that happened as a result. So when it hit, we had to figure out how to get people home, how to get people working that could work from home, how to keep people safe that had to come to work and be physically present. So that rocked us pretty quickly. And I think this team did a wonderful job of handling that. The other thing, though, it did is we remember the Great Resignation. People decided they wanted to try other things. We were not immune to that. Although we have wonderful benefits, take very good care of our people, we still were hit with that. So we said, okay, we've got to pivot and do something different. And some of the members that are here on this council helped us do that. We needed to stand up a couple more teams and just focus differently. So we stood up the talent acquisition team. We went out and did best practice research, looked at different cities, at for-profits, nonprofits, and said, what is the best way to do this in this moment? And then we're able to build a team that's doing exactly that. The results have been improvements in vacancy rates, time to hire, that kind of thing. We continue to hone it. It's not yet perfect, but we're getting there. The other thing with the growth of the city is we said right now each HR employee has about 2,000 customers. Well, that's really hard to manage. So we said, how about we stand up some business partners so that they can be the first point of contact and the conduit so departments can get the information they need when they need it. And that team is alive and kicking and doing a great job. So appreciative of the council for allowing us to do that and to really meet the moment when we needed to. And then the other thing just to know is we really do work at the citywide department and employee level. So citywide, think paying our employees. Obviously, we need to do that on a daily. But then department-wide, there might be some departments that decide they need to go through some change and maybe do an org redesign. We help with that design. We help with new job descriptions, that kind of thing. And then at the employee level, we all go through hard times, ensuring employees know we have things like the Employee Assistance Program. So really sort of a broad across the city reach. And then where we're headed, performance management. There's nothing we can't do better. We believe it. We live it every day. How do we do that? How do we provide our leaders with the development and education training they need to be successful? And then how do we just get better at our operations, our processes? Going out and doing the talent acquisition work really helped us understand how to build good process. So trying to do more of that. Succession planning, we love our people, but inevitably people get to leave and go fishing and do other things for the rest of their lives. How do we prepare for that kind of thing? So we're not reacting, but we're getting people ready and in place. And then I talked about risk. We know things like insurance are just going through the roof. How do we, as best we can, understand that, mitigate and plan for it? And then the last one is technological improvements. We can be better. We can get more efficient. We also have to make sure we can still pay people. So we've got an enterprise resource planning system that is aging out. And we're going to need to come to you and just get some help there because we really do have systems that need to be improved and modernized for sure. So I will stand for questions.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, Kathy.
Madam Mayor, thank you so much for the presentation. As I looked into I know we have a lot of openings with the city, along with a lot of other government organizations and
Mhm.
private organizations, and it seems to be tough to be competitive.
Right.
Looking at the wages, they seem to be a little bit on the lower side compared to some of our other organizations, other government entities like City Meridian
Mhm.
and even state and county. Can you give us an idea of maybe this next year what HR is doing to make sure we're having a competitive wage?
Yeah, I sure
Thank
can.
you.
And this gets really deep really fast. So a lot of it I'll defer and we can come back and talk compensation philosophy and all that. We definitely pay attention to that. And we look at sort of the total rewards. So think about all the benefits you might get. We've gone out and made sure that the benefits people are getting are those that they want, as well as trying to keep track of who is getting paid what, where, and making sure that we are focused in that area. We've done something classification study. It's not a sexy, fancy term, but essentially it's making sure that we have people where they belong in the job classifications and that the pay goes with that. So we'll be making some adjustments coming up here relative to that. So happy to come back with a whole lot more detail, but just note, yes, we are paying attention and we want to stay competitive so we can get the best employees for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. And it's nice to officially meet you.
Madam Mayor, thank you. One, just a couple of compliments. Your team making it through all of last year with all of the construction going on. I
Oh,
know it's
yeah,
not
the
easy to
remodel.
work in that environment, so I'm glad that there's light at the end of the tunnel there and you've got your space. The other thing I really appreciate last year was some of the updates to some of our benefits plans, specifically our parental policy. The update there I thought was really meaningful, and that was really generated by our staff. And so I guess I would just encourage the department again, and I think that might have come through our Office of Innovation, maybe that survey, to continue to be reaching out to our staff to figure out what those benefits are. And then the other thing that was really helpful was your work with our finance team, so that when we were getting some of our finance reports, we actually had a list of the vacancies of where we're at. And that was so helpful, I think, for council just to kind of be getting that regular snapshot of where those vacancies are in the departments. And I know that you all made a lot of great progress, but those were a few things that were really helpful last year. And I think that those would continue to be helpful this year.
Yeah, Councilmember Halliburton, thank you very much. There are a lot of moving parts, and the team, one city, one team is really true. Talking about finance, we all do work very hard together, so you get to see sort of what the situation is, not one department versus another. So that matters. Thank you.
Director Borden, thank you. And thanks for the clarification. I hope that you get feeling better soon.
Thank
That
you.
is rough. That is rough.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I'm going to preface this question with something that a company HR person told me once. They said they get the most applicants for new jobs over Christmas break because people can't stand the idea of going back to their job. Like they get a break and they're like, I don't ever want to go back.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, as the council member said, about turnover. Like, is there a time where turnover peaks and when it doesn't? And so when you put those statistics, I'm very curious, like, is it spring? Is it fall? And when is it hardest to recruit? And when do we have the biggest time where people are like, I'm making a change?
Yeah, Councilmember Willis, your point's well taken. Our talent acquisition team is always making sure over the holidays that we have lots of stuff out there so people can sort of peruse, chat with their family, and decide they want to make a career change in our favor. So that's very true. And turnover rates have gotten better, just to know, and we can certainly bring data back. But the workforce is stabilizing; it's settling down. I don't know that it'll ever go back to. People will still want to move around. I don't think that's going to change, but hopefully we can mitigate some of that.
Madam Mayor, Director Borden, question for you about the technology improvements that
Yep.
you have anticipated. Are you looking at this just as an internal, your human resources, updating the technology you have, or is your HRIS technology connected in other ways to other departments, and will that be a broader effort?
Yeah,
throughout the
Councilmember
city?
Morales, that's a great question, and it is across the city. So I believe Linda Lowry will be talking to you as well on the finance side. It really is the HR and finance, and it touches all across the city. It's a big system. And that's why as it ages out, it gets complicated because it covers so many different pieces, and we have to be thoughtful and have enough time to make a change. And it's not something you can just do overnight. It's a years-long implementation. So that's why we want to get kicking. Good question.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. And next up, we've got Alex Winkler, our Chief Information Officer. and Head of IT. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. I'm one of those talkers like
I was
Maria.
about to
So
say.
just full disclosure. And I even like talking nerd. So that's even better. It's like, but I won't. I'm going to resist talking nerd right now at the mayor's behest. So Mayor, council members, my name is Alexandra Winkler. As I walk through what the IT department does and what we focus on, I think what you're going to hear are themes of stability, transparency, and scalability. Crucial to each of these themes is building a resilient and modern technology and data foundation. We need to keep the elements of security, data, staff efficiency, and our community's experience at the forefront. So it has to be very multifaceted. IT is a full service technology department responsible for the creation and execution of the city's technology and data strategy, as well as maintaining and evolving the entire portfolio we have of hardware, software, and city data. We manage the city's technology programs and services. This goes everywhere from including our city websites, constituent-facing user interfaces, the applications our employees use to do their work, the data the departments create as they do their work, the data centers and cloud environments that host our systems, the fiber that brings connectivity to over 90 city facilities, and finally, the cybersecurity protections that keep each of these layers safe. We partner with each department to ensure citywide and department technology needs are met. We identify software that solves new challenges, migrate aging systems, and decommission those we no longer need. Finally, we're the face of technology to all employees. We buy, configure, and deploy computers, reset passwords, teach, train, and more. We take seriously our responsibility to manage technology risk and keep our systems and data safe. We educate employees, monitor for threats, and train in incident management. To ensure uninterrupted city services, we support the needs of departments for new technologies while updating the current systems and replacing the dated ones. And in addition to these essential services, we team with all departments to improve our community member experiences, accessing our city's services and information. We really want to create a more intuitive and personalized experience for those that need to find information on our website, pay a bill, or speak to a representative. This also requires that we streamline and provide better information and solutions to the staff members that in turn serve the community members. Further, we enable our city's ability to provide government transparency, improve staff efficiency, and use data for data-informed decision-making. But to be honest, we find ourselves at a transition point. We've grown beyond the way that we manage technology and data for many years. To use a much repeated quote, what got us here won't get us there. We as a department and a city must prepare for the future by moving away from only department or use case centric technologies to a more citywide approach in where we can. We must transition from being super hardware heavy to a cloud first or cloud smart bias, and for a preference for highly customized homegrown solutions to more sustainable industry standard commercial off-the-shelf solutions where appropriate. It's not on and off, 0 or 1, but gradations, a bias. This really tees up what we're focused on. In cybersecurity, we're adding ways to improve threat monitoring, always, and software patching of computers. We're working with other government agencies on the state's cybersecurity committee, drafting the state's cybersecurity strategy. We're designing and planning a more resilient, capable, and modern foundation for our technology and data platforms, identifying redundant systems, and implementing a few enterprise platforms that can serve many uses and many departments, like some of the ones you've heard discussed today. CE mentioned public engagement. HR and finance will mention an enterprise resource planning system to manage people and money. We are planning lots of migrations away from vendors that are sunsetting the applications that we use today. We're improving data quality and access both for the staff member and the resident. And we're planning to update our constituent-facing communications platform, including how we deliver services via phone, texting, online portal, email, and more. And this year, for the citywide systems that employees use, we're focused on case management, customer service operations, and records management. And in the future, as you heard, we're preparing to work on the systems for our people and money. That's what I've got. I stand for questions.
Thanks, Alex.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Well, I think IT is one of those things that when it's going well, you don't hear a lot about it. And I know that there's a ton that we don't know that goes into that back end. So thank you so much for running everything smoothly and keeping us on track. I know that when we spoke in the fall, there was some exciting updates about rolling out some Wi-Fi opportunities in parks. I would love, I see Courtney taking the note. I would love an update on that when the opportunity comes. Thank you.
Mayor, Council Pro Tem, it's hard to say like all the words that go into your title. It's pretty amazing. Ted, yes, I'll definitely bring back an update. And just to let everyone know, we already are up and running with Wi-Fi at Cecil Andrus. So that's up and running, but yeah, I'll bring up more in the future. Anything else?
Councilmember.
And Madam Mayor, can you speak to the relationship between IT and assisting our other departments with these technology upgrades? Are you the convener, the facilitator, the leader? What are the dynamics kind of as we move forward with this pretty substantial change in direction for city technology? Kind of how do you see the dynamics with the departments there?
Mayor, Councilmember Morales, thanks for asking. The role of IT in these implementations is multifold. Okay. First, we have business relationship managers that serve as the partner to each department, right? So that's the first thing. We start developing that relationship and really understanding the need. We also have project managers and business analysts on our team that actually run these implementations or contract them out if they're that big and we need to have contract support. Furthermore, we have application services teams that go along with either implement the new system or go along with the agency that does do that so that we can learn them as we go. So that when we do the handoff at the end of it, it's not like, oh, what's this foreign system? No, we've been along there every step of the project. And so that it makes for a smoother transition to sustainment and maintenance. So I basically would say we're full service, right? We do everything from it's a dream, it's a sparkle in someone's eye to handing it over to our team to then in turn maintain the renewals and all of that stuff. So,
Madam Mayor. So thank you so much for the presentation. It's really helpful and understanding. I've heard that an ERP system is becoming pretty critical for HR and for finance because those are homegrown systems. Two questions there. Is there a date or a year where there's really a cliff where we can't manage, we're seeing beyond this year? And is there a priority for either HR or finance? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Corliss, we'll come back with a lot more information about the impending ERP system. Just to clarify, that's one that's not homegrown today, but it is aging, it's older, and we can do better the next time around in implementing the next. So let's see. There's a lot of best practices around how one implements one of these things most effectively. Technically, you can do HR then finance. Typically what we see is there's some things that should go first that establish the foundation, like put in the chart of accounts, and then you can go with different orders. So it typically standard best practices call for implementing finance and then feeding HR in as it goes along. We don't have much of an HRIS or HCM, lots of acronyms, HR systems in place today. They have very minimal technology to support what they do. Really, it's payroll. And they're doing a lot of stuff manually. And so we really need to help HR in that space.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, this is probably just this is a much longer conversation, so I'll throw it out there and then we can put it out there for a later date. I've been thinking a lot about how much data we use and store, and as we grow, all the new software that we have and all the processing needs. And I've been thinking a lot about like, where do we do it? You know, physically, you know, where does this take place? Where do we store it? Where do we process it? And if that's something that needs to be on our radar going forward. I know that you mentioned already about thinking about some cloud first technologies, but really just trying to be aware of, as we're storing more and more stuff and as we're processing more and more stuff, what are the like physical or cloud needs that we'll have to be as a council thinking about in the future?
Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that's the kind of thing that keeps me and my team awake every night. We store terabytes and terabytes of city data in different ways. That transition point I mentioned very much signals the need to change our bias for how we treat that data. So I really am excited to bring more about that to council and talk about how we transition into the future there. It's going to require a multifaceted approach over many years. And something that you might hear in other places is CapEx to OpEx. This transition of capital expenses to operating expenses will necessitate the need to change our financial model for technology. And so that's something we've been working on and we'll need to work on and engage with council on.
Thank you, Alex. All right, and now we've got Linda Lowry with our Department of Finance and Administration.
Good morning. Hello, I am Linda Lowry. I am the Director of the Department of Finance and Administration, otherwise known as DFA. Like community engagement and a few other city departments, DFA supports external communities and businesses, the external community and businesses, as well as internal departments and stakeholders. The city's clerk's office helps protect our community through business licensing and permitting. The front desk people serve approximately 16,000 walk-in customers a year and take 8,000 phone calls and administer 40 different license types. Special event permitting, the city clerk's office also coordinates special event permitting and coordinates with 13 different internal and external city agencies to accomplish that, issuing about 60 permits per year. 2/3 of those events, 1,000 people or larger. The city clerk's office also manages records management, including the PRR intake process. They do legislative support. Kylie Bozeman doesn't just clerk the meetings. Her team also helps put together city council agendas and minutes. They process all of our resolutions and ordinances. They generate all the legal notices, record the necessary documents with the county, and manage the codification process. The city clerk's office also supports the election process by overseeing the declaration of candidate filings, coordinating with Ada County on elections, ballots, and election results, coordinating early voting at City Hall, facilitating the initiative and referendum process, as well as the recall election process. The code compliance team also protects neighborhoods and citizens by ensuring zoning regulations and licensing requirements are followed. They have a staff of 9, including 8 officers who are located in 7 geographic areas and manage about 100 calls a week, resulting in about 1,600 code cases per year. Parking enforcement ensures availability of parking for downtown customers and residents by managing approximately 3,000 spaces across the city via parking permits and parking meters. Animal compliance patrols 1,600 acres of parks and 200 miles of trails to keep them safe and clean so that our residents can enjoy them. DFA is also a full-service finance organization. We provide all finance functions throughout the city. The budget team ensures funding availability to meet department and citywide goals and objectives, and that we follow all state and city regulations. The budget team also does long-term financial planning, in-year forecasting, interim budget changes, and provides strategic analytical support departments and on special projects. Accounting and accounts payable ensure we pay all of our invoices in a timely manner and that our financial statements are accurate and meet government accounting standards. Treasury and revenue management manage our cash and revenue, ensure we optimize our investments, and comply with all debt assurances and reporting requirements, as well as manage the Harris Ranch CID. Purchasing oversees the purchasing process for large purchases of the city and supports all the city departments with smaller purchases while ensuring that we follow all state, federal, and city requirements. They also manage the surplus property disposition process and administer the city's P card program. The grants team was created to support the administrative and compliance requirements associated with the American Rescue Plan Act federal funding, with a long-term goal to improve or enable more grant acquisitions through prospects, research, and grant writing, as well as improving grant administration across the city. Print and mail services supports the city in bulk printing, bindery, mailroom, and courier services, shipping and receiving, and all those other important tasks. And finally, our fleet services team is an industry-leading fleet organization that provides centralized vehicle maintenance, vehicle acquisition, fuel management, and vehicle lifecycle planning for approximately 1,700 vehicles across the city as well. So what to know about DFA? As you can see from the list of services DFA provides, we are a very diverse organization that supports internal, external stakeholders. DFA staff can be found all throughout the city and strive to embody all of our values of one city, one team. There's nothing we can't do better, and community experience with WOW. Our current finance organization does a good job supporting the day-to-day needs of each department and maintaining strong financial controls. However, to meet the demands of a growing city and to fully enable the city to serve the community effectively now and into the future, we need to evolve. Therefore, we are in the process of reorganizing finance. The goals of this reorganization are to improve department analytical and strategic support so leaders can make informed, data-driven decisions in real time, to create process efficiencies and standardizations to enable scalability, which is important because as the city grows, it's important that future resources can be allocated to community priorities versus administrative functions. And our new structure will be aligned with the functional work areas typically seen in modern financial systems, allowing us to achieve optimization of technological functionality. This functionality provides automation for efficiencies, reduces errors, and enhances data transparency and vendor interactions with the city, such as online invoice submission and payment status and payment notifications for vendors. In the spirit of there's nothing we can't do better, we are looking for opportunities for process innovation in the clerk's office and in code enforcement. A big area of focus is to ease interactions, simplify processes, and reduce timelines for licensing. One example was last year's childcare licensing project, where we reduced the timeline to get a childcare license from an average of 100 days in some cases to under 30 days. We're currently looking at other opportunities in the licensing and code enforcement space with similar goals in mind to ensure licensing requirements achieve code objectives without overburdening businesses in the community. The finance reorganization, another priority is to complete that reorganization. We started in fiscal year 22 with an organizational assessment. In fiscal year 23, we completed our org design and role realignment process. The next few phases are focused on ensuring tasks are successfully transferred from the old model to the new model, and as well as process redesign and standardization. Process redesign and standardization will be an ongoing focus in finance now and into the future as we prepare for technological advancements as well as to meet the needs of a growing organization. Technology is always an important enabler of any good finance organization, with knowledge that our current systems are outdated, and to fully leverage new technology, we have been preparing by mapping current state processes, reviewing and updating policies and regulations, gathering requirements for new system needs and desired functionality. With our partners in IT and HR, we've been working to establish citywide financial and HR system governance processes. And most importantly, to bridge to new technology, we've been focused on developing user-friendly self-service financial reporting capabilities for department managers. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
Linda, I think you get the award for the most bullet points next to responsibilities under your department. I'm always amazed how much happens under DFA. I also have this image every single time City Council passes this great new ordinance that the clerk's office downstairs is just like great. we've got all this extra work on our plate. And because whenever we say like, how are we going to do this? We'll like, oh, well, that'll be the clerk's office or code enforcement. It's like, okay, one more thing for them to do. That's something I think about a lot. And I just want to make sure that, you know, I say that out loud and that that's on our radar, is that as we have a new modern zoning code, as we pass new ordinances like source of income and renter protections, a lot of this falls on your department. And I just want to make sure that, one, we're giving them the training and the person power to actually be able to get that work done. So that's something that I think about a lot, and I just want to make sure that's on our radar. The other thing I've been thinking about is just special events, as we're seeing more and more of them happening in the city, and making sure that you've got both the support and the team behind you. I know that that's a big team approach. We've got lots of different departments that work on that. And as those special events start to happen more and more, I think that there's an opportunity for those events to really reflect our city's values. You know, when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to the materials that we're, you know, having people, you know, use at the events, when it comes to accessibility. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to work as a team there. I also think there may be some opportunities for us to incentivize the behavior that we want to see at those events. You know, whether that comes to sustainability, accessibility, you know, celebrating diversity within our city. And there may be some ways where we can find opportunities to incentivize the types of events that we want to see, or the type of behavior that we want to see at the events.
Thank you, Member Halliburton. I appreciate those comments. Go ahead.
So I would love to know, I know that there's so much in the bucket of enforcement for code enforcement. And I would love to know sort of what is the most challenging things for you to enforce. I know that I've recently been working with your office on a, you know, out of hours construction project, and our system wasn't ideal for catching that behavior. And so are there creative solutions that we can support to help, you know, craft a different system maybe for some of these pieces? And what can council do to support you in that effort? I would love to know as a follow-up piece.
Thank you. I very appreciate that. And I think collaboration and coordination is the biggest help when we're talking about new ordinances and implementing them, bringing our team and have them be at the table to discuss not only what are the objectives of new ordinance, but what's the best way to enforce them as well, and to take code and compliance into consideration when we're developing those ordinances, I think is really helpful as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Linda.
Great, thank you.
And next, last before break, Jamie Sullivan with the Department of Legal.
Good morning. Madam Mayor and members of council, my name is Jamie Sullivan. I'm the city attorney. Can you all hear me? Okay, I didn't think so. Not that that's a bad thing, but. Y'all were waiting for me to pull a Sullivan, weren't you? Okay, how about now? Okay, let me try that again. Well, good morning, Madam Mayor and members of council. My name is Jamie Sullivan. I am the city attorney and the director of the legal department. Our mission is to empower, to guide, and to protect the city of Boise and our community. And our staff of 60 takes that to heart. You might appreciate if I kept up with the slides. So there we go. You know, you don't often see legal represented on this side of the dais in council chambers, but that doesn't mean our 3 central divisions are not active in the courtroom and behind the scenes to ensure that we are providing services to our city and to the community. So first, we have the municipal division. It serves the city through all of the city departments that you're seeing here today, internal and external facing alike, from DFA to HR, the airport, to even Doug over there in the zoo. It provides support for mayoral and council initiatives, as well as city boards and commissions, and intergovernmental support, even when the legislative session is not active. In this space, we play a supportive and collaborative role, allowing city internal and external departments alike and city initiatives to shine. Next is the Public Safety Division. It supports police and fire departments and their endeavor to keep our community safe, as well as providing litigation support, being the face of the city in administrative, state, and federal proceedings. And finally, there's the criminal division, where we prosecute misdemeanors and infractions for the city of Boise and the city of Meridian. We also run a law clinic for the law school, and it is in this external role where we, like police, face our community and meet our community members when they are the most vulnerable as we endeavor to seek justice. So as you can see, legal's advice, is very collaborative and comprehensive. At any one moment, our team members could be participating as a stakeholder in the Community Domestic Violence Court, researching the implications on city operations and our community members of proposed state legislation, or crafting interdepartmental contracts to create great community experiences like the Big Pink Tree downtown in Cherie Buckner Webb. We work behind the scenes to ensure that the city's connection to the community is impactful. As the external departments celebrate their accomplishments, whether it be the passage of the modern zoning code, the strives toward 10-minute walks to parks, airport's expansion, groundbreaking water renewal facilities, or innovative affordable housing partnerships, legal shares in those successes by providing practical legal guidance and strategic support. So as we looked ahead to the future, legal will not only continue to play a supportive, collaborative, and creative role to the external departments, but also will bring that focus to the city's infrastructure. One of those areas of focus will be the public records and records retention. Last year alone, the legal department processed over 14,000 public records requests. As the city continues to grow, a comprehensive review of the city's public records and record retention processes and assets will not only ensure compliance with state code, but also the expectations of the community to ensure transparency, consistency, and timely responses. We'll also be focusing that same lens on other internal procedures. The goal is to identify where we can unify and modernize processes between departments to be more efficient, to conserve resources, and minimize redundancy. This review will enable the infrastructure to keep up with the growing needs of the city to ensure it can sustain the services for the benefit of the community. And finally, we're going to turn that same lens of reform internally as we review workflow to ensure we are able to keep up with the needs of the departments. We want to ensure legal's ability to meet its mission through timely, reasoned, and responsive advice. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, well, the attorneys made everybody nervous.
I know. You all just want coffee. I know. It's
Um, uh, Thank you. I appreciate it. Especially appreciate the sharing of focus areas. And, you know, I want to acknowledge all the work that you do, but the public records piece we've seen, just to give council members context over the last several years, just a continued rise in the number of records that are being requested on a daily, if not hourly basis. This isn't a phenomenon that's unique to Boise. It's happening all over the country. And, you know, we're trying to create systems that make it possible to meet our values of transparency with the realities of the number of people that we have in the building and kind of the legacy ways of filling those. So that is a important to me and I know important to this council piece of work that legal department will be addressing this year. And I just wanted to elevate that and thank you for it.
If Patrick was here, you'd have more questions. You don't have to worry about that anymore. The other bullet point was that you give us on-the-spot legal advice in the middle of meetings that you really don't like doing, but tends to happen very often. The work is really, really appreciated. You definitely make every single one of us up here more smarter. See, make each of us up here smarter and make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we will take a break. Thanks, Jamie. We're going to get started in just a minute or two, if everybody can make their way back. All right, welcome back. As you can see on the thing, we'll now hear from Arts and History, then the Library, and then Parks and Rec. So Jennifer Stevens, welcome. Your mic, watch your mic. I can't hear you.
Good morning, Mayor and members of council. My name is Jennifer Stevens. I'm the Director of Arts and History. Welcome to all of you. So many of you are new faces up here, and it's great to have new energy and new interests in the city. So we're very excited to be here, and I particularly am excited. I'm here to talk to you about the fun stuff in the city that we do externally facing. I'm kicking that part off. And so I'm going to start with the mission. In Arts and History, we are trying to cultivate a distinct sense of place that reflects Boise's rich past, diverse communities, and unique natural setting. So you'll hear that through line throughout this presentation. As the city grows and we are welcoming so many new members to our community, it's imperative that we are reflecting the community's values back in all that we do. We want Boise newcomers and, of course, the people who've been here for a long time to understand Boise's values through the 4 divisions of the Arts and History Department: public art, history and archives, cultural sites, and education and outreach. We also have 1 staff member that is devoted entirely to cultural planning. All 4 of these divisions provide some level of the first bullet point here, public programming, ranging from public art tours to a new history tour series, to artist and writer workshops, to events such as the Fettuccine Forum, which is a 20-year-old lecture series that features speakers that are knowledgeable about the history related to Boise. We all also support the creative economy, and we do that for the performing arts, the visual arts, film industry, writers, and humanities professionals. The support that we offer comes through professional development workshops, opportunities for creating public art as part of the city's collection, and creating policy that encourages and supports the creative sector. The city also owns and Arts and History operates 2 cultural sites: the Irma Heyman House in the River Street neighborhood and the James Castle House, which is located in the Collister neighborhood. Both of these sites interpret histories that tell stories that are unique to Boise and connect various communities that we aim to serve as we work to create a city for everyone. The Irma Heyman House, of course, interprets the working class and people of color history in the River Street neighborhood, while the James Castle House uses James Castle's story to reach various communities, including the deaf and hard of hearing. The History and Archives Division is striving and aiming to become the community recognized experts on Boise history. The archives, the city archives, is a place where government records and other manuscript collections are permanently stored and made easily accessible to the public once they're no longer active, so that historians and other researchers will be able to tell Boise's story long into the future. Our history program offers tours and lecture series that share these stories then with the public. The public art program and the collections management team works with local and national artists to curate a unique collection that has grown to more than 1,000 works. And those include both 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional arts that hang throughout city buildings, adorn street corners through our traffic box program, and create places of contemplation throughout our parks. Think Pink Tree. That the public art team also runs the collections management staff that cares for this art and the art artifacts, ensuring that taxpayer investments are properly conserved and cared for. They also manage the rotations of art in public buildings as well. And you probably noticed the night of all of your swearing in that there was new art hanging both in chambers as well as in the City Hall lobby, and that was our team that did that. Finally, Arts and History runs a $150,000 grant program that supports free and low-cost and accessible programming for Boiseans. So what to know? Our team comes from a variety of backgrounds, including museum, history, arts, education, and really all of our goal is placemaking. That is a term that describes the process of strengthening connections between people and place. We aim to really create a place and places throughout Boise where people want to live, work, and play, and that residents love and feel connected to. Our team members really focus on ways to connect Boise residents with Boise values, because the more that people understand our community and understand those values that we hold, the more they are engaged in civic life and the more committed they are to being engaged residents. We are primarily an external facing department, but we also provide services internally to the departments that are our peers. We offer history research, art consultations, et cetera, to the housing team, the fire department, and any other department who requests our services in helping with placemaking. As for our current focus, we are always aiming to increase public programming. And to do that, what we're really aiming to do and looking into right now is beginning to design a revenue generation plan. We want to provide additional opportunities for residents in the creative sector and make connections between them and the wider community so that we remain focused on nurturing a city for everyone. To boost our ability, we are going to be looking at revenue generation, some of which you'll see in the budget build this year. We're going to make sure that those opportunities and those revenue generating ideas are mission driven. We're hoping to offer special tours, additional workshops, and educational offerings. The Parks Department, of course, provides a great model for this, and we've been working closely with our peers in that department who have kind of nailed that model. We are also devising long-term plans for the City of Boise archives. We are aligning our work with the clerk's office as it relates to public records that you heard a little bit about earlier. We're aiming, of course, for the long-term preservation of those records that are no longer active in order to preserve the city's legacy. We want to make these records more accessible to the public and become recognized as the community experts on Boise history. And finally, this year, you're going to be hearing a lot about our support for the creative economy. We work closely with the mayor's office and their economic development team. We're going to be updating the cultural plan, which is now 5 years old. And we are going to be focused this year on implementing the master arts plans for both Public Works. We have a particular coordinator that manages that and has been working closely with that department, as well as the Boise Airport, and that position is open right now, and we have already several dozen candidates for that, so we're really excited. We hope that that continued support will align with city and department mission and continue to serve the public. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Great overview. Questions?
Madam Mayor, council members, you got to get in there. Jennifer, one of the things I really appreciate about you as a leader is that you really understand the strategy of what your department needs to do. And you can kind of see that through the revenue generation, the public programming. But I also see you frequently really in touch with the creatives in the community, understanding, what it's like to be in their shoes and sort of that boots on the ground. And so you kind of have both lenses, and it makes you a really great director, and it makes our department really effective. We do have a great model with parks in that we have revenue generation, and then we also have really great programs so that anybody can still get into the programs even when they can't afford to do so, and to make them really accessible. One of the things I want to make sure that we're thinking about is that as housing prices go up, as the cost of living goes up, our creatives in our community are sometimes moving further away from Boise or having a harder time getting their art or what they contribute to the community actually onto our streets. And sometimes they're taking them into other places. And we see that also with our special events. I brought this up with DFA. And I really want to make sure that we're doing what we can as a city to leveraging our own resource to address some of those additional costs. And I think that you came up with some great ideas during the Cascadia Music Forum, even with parking. How can we reduce some parking costs for artists that are traveling into town? Those are, I think, the ideas that are going to make a big difference and keep our creatives coming to Boise. And so I hope your department continues to come up with even those small ideas on how the city can leverage its own resources, whether it's special events or other types of programming, to make sure that we're making it more affordable for creatives. And so I don't know if that's, I think that when I see support the creative economy in our grants program, I see that there. I don't know if there's any other ideas or kind of incentives or things that you've been working on as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Halliburton and Mayor. Yeah, we, just as one example, last year when the Planning and Development Services was working on the modern zoning code, our cultural planner, Tilly Bubb, was active in the discussions about ADUs, for example. Dealing with housing for the creatives, you're exactly right. A lot of them are being priced out of the city or are fearful of being priced out of the city. And so certainly sort of easing or greasing the skids, if you will, for building more ADUs was one way that we hope that we can continue to provide housing for the creatives. But you're exactly right. Working with the community and listening to them as to what will be useful for them and most helpful for them, including things like parking permits for musicians when they're trying to unload their gear. Those are the kind of small nudges, if you will, that won't take a lot of city resources, but which are really meaningful for the communities that we serve. So yeah, we're always looking for those opportunities, and we've been collaborating closely with all the different departments to find those little spots that we can help the community that we serve in particular to thrive within our city limits. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Next up, we've got Jessica Dorr with the library.
Whoa. Madam Mayor, members of council, my name is Jessica Dorr, and I'm the director of the Boise Public Library. The Boise Public Library is overseen by a 5-member board of trustees, which sets strategy and policy for the library, oversees operations, and monitors budget and spending. I have no doubt all of you are familiar with at least some of the services of the library. Maybe you've attended Pajama Storytime downtown, or Music and Movement in your local park. Maybe you have a tracker for summer reading on your refrigerator. Maybe you've come to the Boise Comic Arts Festival. Maybe we've booked a meeting room for an organization that you're part of. Maybe we've printed a resume. We might have helped you in school or applying for a job or starting a small business. I could go on and on and on. Maybe we accompany you on a walk in an audiobook with your dog. I have no doubt that all of you have your own library story, as many, many of our residents in Boise do. Our mission is to provide access and opportunity for everyone by connecting people to ideas, information, and community. Boise Public Library truly is a place for everyone. What to know? Last year, the Board of Trustees approved a new strategic plan for impact for the library to set our direction for the next 5 years. This plan was created through extensive community engagement with library users, potential users, stakeholders, and partners. Through these discussions, we were able to refine our mission and values, and we heard loudly from the community that they expect us to lead in education and learning, but also appreciate and are wanting us to strengthen our role as a community connector to resources, services, and organizations. We are excited about this new strategic plan because Boise heavily uses, appreciates, and supports the library. Last year alone, we had 642,000 in-person visits to our 5 locations. We circulated 2.3 million books. 56% of that were physical, 44% digital. And we held 9,000 programs, which more than 116,000 people attended. Our strategic planning process included a community engagement survey, which confirmed that Boiseans expect the library to be inclusive and serve all residents. Boiseans expect their library to offer books that reflect the wide and diverse interests of our community, and they expect to be able to make reading choices for their own family. Boiseans want access to diverse material, and they want access to books. To meet this expectation, we've been piloting a project with the Library of Congress that helps us bring local materials into our collection. This is bringing in books that were written in languages that are spoken by some of our newest arrivals. We recently added 50 books in Urdu to our collection, and we expect to have more books from around the world arriving shortly. Boiseans definitely want access to books. Boise Public Library is part of the LINKS Consortium. This is an 11-library consortium throughout Southwest Idaho. And on October 1st, we added 3 libraries to our courier route. This was the libraries in Twin Falls, Mountain Home, and Emmett. That increased the number of books that are available to Boise cardholders by 27%, 6% from 1.4 million titles to 1.8 million titles. So if anyone here or anyone in the community thinks that Boise Public Library doesn't have something of interest for them to read, I suggest they look again, and my staff is always happy to make recommendations. Our current area of focus, I'm just delighted about this. In spring, the library will debut a new website. Our website is our 6th branch, or our welcome mat. In fact, some of our heaviest users of the library only access us digitally through the website, and we want to serve them and all of the people who use our website better. Our partners in community engagement and IT are working with us to build a website that is as user-friendly and as dynamic as any of our physical locations. Building on our new strategic plan, we are poised to launch a facilities plan this year to create that long-term plan for our facilities. The last time the library created a facilities plan was the year 2000, when the library consisted of the downtown location and a small storefront rental at the Boise Town Square Mall. So the time is right to do this work with the community to create a long-term plan that really is sets our direction for the entire system. We heard during our strategic planning process how much the community wants to engage on the facility plan and how they want it to be a comprehensive look at all of the library: facilities, technology, staffing, materials, funding. We are close to selecting a consultant to help with this work, and we'll be bringing back to council more details when we have a timeline and steps to share. And finally, we will continue to provide books, materials, and programming that reflects our diverse community. We know this is what Boise expects of us, and we are proud to serve them and to serve everyone. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thanks, Jessica. Yes.
When we spoke in the fall, you had expressed the responsibility that you feel for the education of our young children to start school at reading level with their peers.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to acknowledge the work you do. I think it's so important, and we're so lucky to have you. And I want to know, in a role that has become, I guess, unfortunately, more and more political, what can we do to, and this might be an offline topic, but what can we do to continue to support the freedom of our libraries?
Madam Mayor, council members said, thank you for the question. This is a challenging time to work in a public library. And one of the things that I do want to really share is how much we appreciate people who recognize that, but also how really we know that the people in Boise expect and appreciate a diverse library. And that is what I share with staff, what my Board of Trustees shares with staff. That's what the mayor, who recently came to one of my all-staff meetings, shared, is we know that we have the support of our Board of Trustees, our city leadership, and really the community. We heard directly from the community last year during our strategic planning process. And that is why many of us became librarians, as we really truly believe in access and opportunity for everyone. So thank you.
Madam Mayor, Director, I just want to call out, I think everyone knows libraries have books, but I just want to call it special appreciation for all the outreach and programming that your staff does. And particularly the outreach, as a dad, I've seen staff at, concerts in the park, tabling. I've seen them at kindergarten orientation at our public school. And, at both of those events, I learned about new programs that we actually ended up using, whether it was music and movement for my 3-year-old, where they just, have fun singing and enjoying the library space, or some of the reading goals for my kindergartner. So I just want to really call out special appreciation for those staff that are spending that time, and I know it can be hard in the hot sun at a concert in the park, that are putting in that time to make those connections in our communities, because it's so valuable to I think all of our neighbors. So thank you.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Morales, thank you very much. I will make sure to pass that along specifically to youth services. One of my recent Board of Trustee members talked about how much they like reviewing the budget for that group in particular, because of how much money we spend on bubbles.
Oh, cute. Mayor, is that okay? Hey, Director Dorr, thank you for all that you do. I am curious, and we don't have to get a full presentation on today, but when I very first came to council, you had just hired a mental health coordinator downtown. And I'm really curious about what they're seeing, how that is functioning. Is that something that we need to replicate other places? I just love to hear your experience with that, because I know that that was new.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, thank you for the question. Yes, for background, we added a mental health coordinator position about a little over a year and a half ago to our library staff, and it has really just been an amazing asset to the community. She is someone who has enabled us to be so much more effective. Number one, reaching a vulnerable population, but also two, making all of our staff more effective. She helps us by understanding the resources that are available for people who are experiencing mental health crisis, housing insecurity, food insecurity. So she connects us better into the social network, and she's also able to spend time with people who really need more attention in navigating social services. So we are thrilled to have her. She has really been a game changer in so many ways. And she is, as we talk about, she is only one person. So she's also really looking at what are ways that she can scale her knowledge, potentially bringing in interns, potentially looking at other positions. So I very much appreciate the question and certainly appreciate this council's commitment to the role that she is playing. She really is making all of us more effective in supporting the community.
Madam Mayor, I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I mean, I think, as you said, we all have our stories of library, and I couldn't be more proud of the library services that we do provide. They're so varied and vast, anything from like a 3D modeling to virtual reality, robot programming, to the traditionals, and also providing legal services. So thank you, and looking forward to this being a continued evolution. One thing that I think is also really critical that the library provides is a free space for people to have meetings for various groups. I'd be interested to know, as we go through the facilities plan, is the occupancy of those spaces as well. Is that something we need to look at growing in the future? So thank you again.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Corliss, that will absolutely be something we will look at, because I think that is something we also heard in the strategic planning process, how much people appreciate, and that role of being conveners is really such an important one for libraries.
Mayor, I can be pretty quick here. For our council members who are kind of wondering how to get more involved and kind of wondering some of the data that's out there, the library put together a great advocacy toolkit, and it really just talks about the numbers of how our library gets used. It's a tremendous resource to kind of fight some of the misinformation that might be out there. One thing that might be helpful, was helpful for me, sitting as the library liaison, was actually getting to hear about the request for reconsideration policy from the library and how intentional that really is, and how serious all the library staff takes that. And so whether that comes to council or something for our council members to look at if they're involved in these discussions, that request for reconsideration policy, I think, is just like a real key sign of how hard our library works to make sure that we're doing a good job. The one quick question I had, I know that we haven't found the consultant yet, and so we're kind of trying to get some of these things nailed down. Do we anticipate a facilities plan being close to finished by the end of the year, potentially overlapping a little bit? I know that strategic plans and facilities plans take a long time, but do we have any ballpark idea when we might see a completion?
And I'm going to ask for as abbreviated an answer as possible, because we are now over.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, thank you for the questions and comments. As far as the timing of the facilities plan, I would be hesitant to give you a timeline at this point until we actually have that consultant and we're able to truly work out how long that will take. I do appreciate the sense of urgency, and we will be moving as quickly as we can. Thank you.
I expect it's likely once a consultant is hired, there will be an update with that where we could include some more information on mental health, and information can be provided on the policy that we have for reconsideration. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Next up, we've got Doug Holloway with Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, Madam Mayor, council members. Doug Holloway, Director of Parks and Recreation, and appreciate the opportunity this morning to talk about some of the things we have going on in our department. I would start with one of our core focuses in our department is really community well-being. And that is really involves what we're doing in creating additional and accessible green and open spaces. It also is our recreation programming and facilities management as well, and adding to that inventory for our community use. And that does include, Madam Mayor, your favorite sport of adding pickleball courts. Some of the core focus of what we do, obviously, before we add and continue to develop new parks and new connections, we need to take care of the facilities that we have. And that includes maintaining all the park locations we have as well as the facilities. We have a park design and development team that is using best practices in the country, using cutting edge processes to be able to design the best and most accessible parks for our community. To develop those parks and really all of the programming that we do in Parks and Rec, we engage our community in what they're looking for, what they want to see in a park location or in a recreation program. We provide a large amount of recreation and educational programming, and we also are managers of a large, vast asset of land and facility management as well. Our elevator speech in Parks and Recreation really comes down to these four core areas. We're very privileged and honored to be stewards of some of the most well-used facilities that we have in the city of Boise. These public places and outdoor spaces are loved to death, and we are very proud and honored to be able to take care of 96 different developed park sites. We have 25 miles of greenbelt and 210 miles of open foothills trails in our open space division. And then we also manage a number of facilities in the community, and this is just a few of those with Idaho Ice World, Zoo Boise, and the Boise Depot, among others. We are highly committed to inclusion, accessibility, and community well-being. Our number one initiative in the department is our goal to have every every household within the city limits of Boise to be within a 10-minute walk of a park or open space. And we are among the top 100 most populous cities in the country. We're one of the top at 70% of those households are within that 10-minute walk. Unfortunately, we'd like to flip that on its head and say we really still have 30% of our residents that we need to continue to look at ways to create creative connections within the community, as well as continue to add park space to get that 10-minute walk to 100%. We have a scholarship program. Fortunate or unfortunate, we do charge for a lot of our programming. We generate about $14 million a year in revenue. And so we are offering things that people do need to pay for. So we have a very aggressive scholarship program. This past year in 2023, we issued 16,487 scholarship activities, which is a record since the scholarship program has been in place since 2001. So that's more families, more youth, more seniors, and more of those of all abilities that are participating in programs that might not otherwise have an opportunity to do so. We do offer our free after-school programming at 9 different Title I schools in both the Boise and West Ada school districts. We have an amazing adaptive recreation program for all abilities. It's probably one of the top in the Northwest. Certainly in the Treasure Valley, it is the only one offered. We continue to offer accessible features at all of our playgrounds, and we are developing accessible trails. We've done 3 this year, and we have a plan to do at least 3 more within the next year. We are dedicated to conservation. Since 2001, the first levy in 2001, we have preserved and conserved just over 11,000 acres of foothills space. Through the Elaine Clegg Tree Planting Challenge, we have planted just over 15,000 trees since 2020. And we are also in the 3rd year of our pesticide reduction program, where our goal is to reduce, if not come very close to eliminating synthetic chemicals in all of our park locations. And of course, we're dedicated to habitat management with our restoration projects, both in the foothills and along the Boise River. And we have an opportunity to put pollinator gardens, which is very beneficial to a lot of our insects in this community in all of our park locations. And finally, our health and wellness that we promote. All of the things that we are stewards of in that first box, we use our programming to enjoy those spaces with our community. Our sports programming, our youth and adult performing and visual arts programs, probably two of the biggest programs that we have in our inventory. Last year, we had about 1.6 million visits to all of our activities that we either take registration for or we actually track attendance at those locations. So think those that go to Ice World, the zoo, our golf courses, or sign up for a youth or an adult art class. By tracking all those, we had 1.6 million users that came to those activities, and that doesn't count all the users that go to those 96 parks or 25 miles of greenbelt or enjoy our foothills. And then, of course, local food production is very important to us. So urban farming with our partnership with Boise Urban Garden School and the work that we're doing also in developing some of our community garden locations, including Spalding Ranch. So our current focus moving forward this next year, we do have a number of park sites we will be developing, and hopefully within the next 12 months, we'll be dedicating those sites. That includes Primrose off Gary Lane, our linear park and pathway connection across from Capitol High School on Goddard. We also are creating a connection in Ann Morrison Park, the Peasley connection that will connect the Central Bench down to Ann Morrison. We're also building a new facility at Warren Springs Golf Course, what we refer to as our grill and golf facility that'll serve not only the guests that we have at the golf course, but also our greenbelt and our foothills and our neighborhoods that surround Warren Springs as well. And then we are breaking ground on the Phase 1A of the Zoo Boise Master Plan, and that'll occur in the first week of May. And there'll be a new red panda exhibit, a new education facility. We'll be reconstructing and remodeling the small animal kingdom, and then we'll be adding a new gift shop, and that'll all be part of that Phase 1A, and that'll take about 2 years to complete as well. So, Madam Mayor, I'd stand for questions.
Comment. Madam Mayor, I just want to commend Doug for his prompt responsiveness last week with some snow removal. We've been working with ACHD on trying to make sure that they're doing a better job of not piling up the snow around the homeless shelter near the skate park. And just want to thank you for your responsiveness and help in making sure that people that are walking down there in the snowy weather can get where they need to go. So thank you.
Madam Mayor, Council President Nash, thank you.
Madam Mayor, Doug, thanks for all your work. Also, thank you for clearing the snow. Wish you would have been in my neighborhood. It's not fun. I would like, and I know that Courtney's taking copious notes, I would like a presentation on pathways because I keyed into that you had some things that you had in mind already. So I'd like to refresh, especially for other members of the council, what we have right now, what we're looking for, price, all that kind of stuff so that we can get a sense in once these things start happening, how much people are going to want them and want more of them.
Yes, that will be on the agenda. Thank you. All right, thanks, Doug.
Great, thank you,
Appreciate it.
Mayor.
And now, Ron Weiniger with police.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be here. As is their custom, fire has sent police in first to see if it's safe and if they can go next. Would like to just briefly touch on this slide for those who were here last year. Just a reminder for those who weren't, in February, Fire Chief Niemeyer and I presented on these topics, our public safety priority initiatives. And we had a discussion on this. I just want to make you aware that these continue to be a focus and they are truly anchor points for what we plan to accomplish in the coming years. So I won't necessarily go through them again, but you can see what the topics are there for yourselves. The Boise Police Department, our mission is to protect, serve, and lead our community to a safer tomorrow. And the things listed here on this slide are some of the primary functions of the Boise Police Department. That is not necessarily all encompassing of everything that we do, but it captures the essence of what is required of us, as well as an overview of what we provide in the way of other services to our community. And without going through them bullet by bullet, I'll just let you take a peek at those. But they are numerous, and they take a lot of effort and requirement of us to protect our community and serve our community in an ever increasing number of ways. And I think we've talked about public records requests and those things, but those are encompassed in our documentation and our records management, and those types of things tend to be increasing for sure in our world. I'll let you read these 4 areas here for yourselves while I talk about the community policing model and what it means to us at the Boise Police Department. As the Office of Police Accountability Director McKay described, community policing is essentially engaging members of our community as partners in problem solving and addressing crime, the fear of crime, and quality of life issues. Our relationships and outreach efforts go back over 50 years. When I started in 1993, our school resource officer program was over 20 years old at the time. We were one of the first 2 in the country to develop school resource officers and to place officers in schools in an effort to develop relationships with youth in order to prevent crime, but more importantly, to provide mentorship and be a resource to the students and the staff. We have approximately 1/3 of our department currently dedicated and devoted to community engagement and outreach, including neighborhood contact officers, engaging as a unit since 1996, if my memory serves me correctly. We have a refugee liaison officer position, one of the first, if not the first in the country. We have bike patrol officers that have been operating since the late 1980s or early 1990s. We have a behavioral health response team, which pairs mental health clinicians with officers to better address the needs of mentally ill folks in crisis. And I just checked, we hired our first mental health coordinator for that type of position 9 years ago to this next month. We have highly trained specialty units, including one of the most professional special operations groups in the Northwest, which includes special weapons and tactics designed to save lives in extremely dangerous circumstances. We have dedicated crisis negotiators, explosive ordnance detail or bomb squad members, specialty canine officers. The list goes on of all the different types of specialties in the Boise Police Department. But really, it's an effort to engage with our community and provide them safety and security, as well as opportunities to engage in solving problems in their neighborhoods and in their lives. Past outreach efforts of the BPD have included even a mounted patrol unit in years past, a rock and roll band reaching out to youth and developing relationships with them in our community. We provide levels of service, frankly, that most other departments in communities our size don't. And we certainly do it with fewer officers than our peer cities. We're committed to doing everything we can to maintain or increase those levels of service as we grow as a city. And just to give you a snapshot, our neighborhood contact officers last year participated in over 110 formal outreach events, interacting with over 116,000 residents and community members here. We're committed to engaging our community as partners in all that we talked about in the previous slide. And multiple studies show that this is the way to keep crime rates low and to preserve the many wonderful things that we love about our Boise home and our community. Our current focus areas. This is what I would refer to as the commander's intent. This is what we are going to be communicating throughout the organization over the next couple of years and what we focus on. And that includes wellness. We must care for our employees and provide tools for dealing with the traumas of the job in order to keep them physically and emotionally well enough to do the job that we expect of them. We've committed to a strong focus on multiple facets of wellness over the next year and beyond, including offering training on things like tactical breathing, sleep disruption issues, critical incident stress management, and even yoga for first responders, if you can believe it. We've come through some tremendously challenging times in policing in the past few years, and staffing is a huge challenge. The good news is we're in a better shape than many agencies across the country, and we have a legitimate plan to fill our vacancies and maintain service levels as we grow as a city. And finally, our strategic planning over the next 2 years will include identifying and developing appropriate facilities to more efficiently deploy our resources, increasing the use of technology. Yes, Alex, I mentioned it. To help us do our jobs more efficiently and providing leadership development and succession planning for tomorrow's leaders in our agency. Those are a very high level, but I would stand for any questions you may have, which I know might be
Thank you, Chief.
some.
Sorry, here. and
Madam
then
Mayor,
work
yeah,
down
I
the
was
line.
just gonna say that over 134,000 calls and 338 officers. I just wanted to call that out. That's pretty amazing. Thanks for all your work. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Stead, thank you. And I'm not very good at math, but that's a whole lot per officer.
Madam Mayor, Chief, another thank you. Last week was crazy. I know that your officers were helping a lot of folks just make it through the day. So thank you. I appreciate it. We don't get this kind of weather very often, but when we do, it really emphasizes the importance of first responders and all that you do. So I'll thank fire as well, but thank you. One thing that I'm very interested in and keen is that you had talked about last year about this tipping point of population, about once you get to a certain population, you need this certain number of officers. And if you don't have that, then how you can't catch up. So as part of the discovery process, what I'd really like to hear is how we're doing on recruitment. You know, we added some more police officers to the budget, what the needs still are and what the trajectory looks like over the next, 5 years.
And that'll be, I'll say for time that he's got all that, and that will be part of the upcoming discussions that will be brought back.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'll say this every single year, but the health and well-being of our first responders, there's nothing more important to me. When they show up well-rested, clear minds, they're always going to be able to do a better job. And so our continued investment there is appreciated, and that continued focus will always be appreciated. My ask is that if you're finding things that are especially effective, that we also share those with our other departments as well, because mental health doesn't just stop at our first responders. I know that there's police officers and firefighters who are getting an extra half an hour of sleep every single night because of trainings that you all have put on, and that helps them do a better job. So I really appreciate that. In a future presentation, I would love to know how our behavioral health response teams are doing, because we did add an additional one a few years ago. And I think that we've got at least one officer that's retiring here pretty soon from that response team. So yeah, I would love to get an update on how those are working and if that's an area that we're going to continue to invest and expand in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton. We would be happy to discuss those with you for sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we've got Boise Fire, Chief Niemeyer.
Madam
Also
Mayor,
a talkative
Council.
one, so I'm going to ask you to be mindful of time.
Hey, come on now. Oh, stand by. I'm killing my time here. Madam Mayor, Council, good morning. Yes, so Mark Niemeyer, your fire chief, proud to represent the 312 employees of the fire department that are proudly serving this community every day. Full disclosure, I have to, because Courtney set it up. I am a talker, but I'm going to keep this in line. So covering the services we provide, and we'll certainly come back to you in further presentations. If you look at the top 3 bullet points, think of those as our external facing divisions. They're activated through the 911 system. Everything below that is our internal facing to make the machine work so that we can provide that service every day. We'll certainly be back to cover these in more detail. What to know about the fire department? The first bucket are response models. We have had a very traditional response model for many years. It's big fire engines, big ladder trucks responding to calls for service. Sadly, over the last 10 years, our call volume has not only increased, but has changed dramatically, specifically to mental health and other issues that our community faces. And so we are continually looking at how do we respond in the future outside of that traditional response. So augmenting the traditional response with a diverse response model to better serve our community. In the middle bucket, we look to industry standards a lot. We are a mission-driven culture and a standards-driven fire department. So just a couple to point out. National Fire Protection Association is the consensus standards in the nation and how fire departments should establish themselves and respond. We work with the Idaho Survey and Rating Bureau, who comes in every 5 years, if not sooner, to evaluate our fire department along with others in the state of Idaho, to provide feedback to the insurance carriers who ultimately decide premiums from a fire department response for both residential and commercial insurance. And then we have the state of Idaho, who oversees our EMS licensure for our medical providers. All of our firefighters are either paramedics or EMTs. They have state licensure, and that state requires a certain amount of ongoing training every year. So those are the standards that we look to, just to name a few. And then on the partnerships, we are very proud to partner with several individuals and associations throughout the state of Idaho and the nation. Just a few to mention. We have a great partnership with the National Park Service. We have a great partnership with our providers in Ada County, the other fire departments, so we have good mutual aid coverage throughout. We have a very strong partnership with the state of Idaho. We are the Region 4 hazmat team for the state of Idaho. We do hand-in-hand work on a regular basis with Brad Ritchie in the Office of Emergency Management, all the way to the governor's office. I want to talk real briefly about our current focus areas, and you saw this from Chief Weineger's presentation. I'm very happy to go after Chief Weineger and bring this home. Our response evolution, you'll hear more about four-person staffing. You're going to hear about station alerting. You're going to hear about the medical calls we are going on and some alternative responses that we have to that. Our capital planning, we're excited to get Station 5 completed. That's about 10 months away. That is at Grove between basically the 16th between Grove and the connector. That is moving along very well until this recent snowstorm, but we're catching back up. Northwest Station 3, we're going to be very excited to break ground in the next month to 2 months. We haven't set the date yet, but we know it's coming. That is in our Northwest community at State and Bogart. We're very excited to bring services to the Northwest. And then Station 18 on Garden City, that is a station on Chinden Boulevard that was shut down several years ago to funding issues. This is a North Ada County station, but was also servicing the Boise bench as you go up off of Chinden Boulevard. We're working with North Ada County Fire and Rescue, who we have a contract with to provide service to get Station 18 reopened. Workforce stabilization, we're always looking at recruitment, and we're always focused on retention. We hire great firefighters. We want to keep great firefighters. We have a very strong focus there. We do that through the development of professional development, make sure everybody in the organization is growing as they continue their career. And then again, we mentioned evolving the resource modeling. And then lastly, as Councilman Halliburton mentioned, we are very focused on employee wellness. We have a 7-prong lifetime wellness program we're very proud of, from hire to retire and beyond. This year, we are staying very focused on the mental and physical wellness, but also looking to injury reduction and safety. And then lastly, financial education for our firefighters. We know that that's a stressor at home for everybody. And so the more we can educate, the better they are when they walk through the threshold of a firehouse. With that, hopefully that was 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chief. Questions for the chief?
Just to thank you.
Thank you.
You need to thank you on that. Just same. I know that your folks were very busy last week, and we appreciate all that you do to help people in times of crisis and times of plenty. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. All right. Now we've got Tim Keene with Planning and Development Services.
Mayor, members of council, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Tim Keene, Director of Planning and Development Services. These are the things we do. I want to use this slide to recognize the incredible leadership within the planning department, most of which is joining me today. I want to start with our housing director, who's Maureen Brewer. You all, if you don't know her well now, you'll certainly get to know her extraordinarily well because housing is such a commitment at the city. And Maureen started her job about 3 years ago and really was given the responsibility to build a housing program at the city. The city had always received grants, of course, from HUD, but this is a new time for the city investing in housing itself. So Maureen had to build a team that could execute on that. This is 3 years again, a new business. Yes, ma'am.
Tim, I'm just jumping in because I think the staff you're pointing out are here. So I'll just ask that folks raise their hand when Tim acknowledges you.
Sorry, there's Maureen. And anyway, build a team, and she's done such an amazing job of building a team that is so skilled, and they care so much about what they do. So we're lucky to have Maureen and her team. Second, Jessica Zelag, who leads our planning group, which includes mobility and pathways as well, and of course zoning and planning for the city. And Jessica started just over 2 years ago at a time when she was asked to completely reorganize the planning department and create new businesses within the planning department, like mobility and public spaces, and also get the new zoning ordinance done and implemented. So an extraordinary lift for Jessica, who is new to the city and has an incredible team that she's gotten committed to doing all this work exceptionally well. Yvette Harris is with us. I'm sorry, Jessica's here. And then Yvette is with us as well. Yvette Harris, who runs operations within the planning department and basically supports every piece of good work that we do. None of it's possible without Yvette's team. And that includes the direct interaction we have with so many customers, because part of Yvette's team is about that, is about the first chance people get to interact with PDS is within Yvette's team. We're lucky to have Yvette. Jason could not join us today. Jason runs buildings. And just to remind you, we have permitting and inspections for a reason. And that is that we have safe buildings in the city. We don't just issue permits because it's fun. We do it so that we'll have safe buildings. And Jason is the best kind of person to lead that group because, you know, you're dealing with lots of codes. You all will hear a lot about this because you're going to hear from people about their permits. No question. And Jason is the best person to lead that group because he knows all this, but he's also incredibly accessible. He is empathetic with people, and he is so creative in finding solutions to what people are facing when it comes to the difficult challenge of building anything. Next is what to know about the planning department. The first thing I wanted to talk about is how we are uniquely responsible for building the city on an everyday basis and then thinking about the city in the long run. What I mean is, and this has to do with what makes a really, really good planning department. And it has to, if you think about the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, we have people within Maureen's team, for instance, that are helping individuals lease an apartment, you know, literally helping them go from not having a place to live to having a place to live. That's a very personal interaction on a day-to-day basis. We have inspectors in people's homes, inspecting their kitchens and the rest of their house to make sure that they're safe. You know, having somebody in your house from the city is not typical. And so those folks have a real responsibility on a day-to-day basis, helping businesses get operational from zoning, permits and inspections, all that. So on a day-to-day basis, we're having all those interactions with people around building the city, but we're also asked to look at the city 5, 10, and 20 years from now. And the magic of this work is if we can have everyone see the relationship between all those experiences with people, that being in somebody's kitchen and inspecting it or helping someone get an apartment and get into an apartment has to do with where we want the city to be 10 and 20 years from now. If we can do that, we're doing this work exceptionally well. The second thing is partnerships are key to housing. So we're in the midst of building about just over 1,400 housing units in the city right now that the city has spearheaded. About 200 of those are permanent supportive housing. So for people that are just coming out of or seeking to be in a home for the first time in a while. And none of this work is possible without the partners. You'll hear so much about this from Maureen, but people like, or agencies like the Idaho Housing and Finance Association, our housing authority, the incredible group that's part of Our Path Home and is committed to helping people that are experiencing homelessness, and private developers. Because we're of those 1,400 or so units that I mentioned, as I said, about 200 of them are permanent supportive housing. So for very low income people, the majority of the remainder are for people making 60% or less of area median income, which means people that are working in service businesses or they're working lower paying jobs in institutions and those kinds of things. It could be somebody working at a grocery store, at a restaurant. So most of our housing is for the most low income in the city. You can't do that without partnerships. We're taking many steps to make zoning and planning more accessible to people. And this started during the zoning ordinance, of course, with the incredible help of CE and IT in the city. We developed the development tracker. So for the first time in the city's history, people have really understandable access to what permits are happening, what development's happening in the city, but also in their area of the city. Never had that before. It used to be you had to navigate Acela, which is a complex system for somebody that doesn't understand it to really navigate. The development tracker allows you even to sign up for emails and every week get an email about what development's happening in your area of the city. So that was a real commitment to accessibility of information around what people care so much about, which is development of their neighborhood and their city. That will continue. Right now, we're developing a user's guide for the incentives. If you remember the new zoning ordinance, there's some incentives in there that are really important to us that have to do with people using sustainable practices, that has to do with incentivizing affordable housing. So we want to make those incentives very understandable to people, and we're developing a user's guide so that we can distribute it widely and people know how to do it. It's a step-by-step guide to use those incentives. I'll have to say people are using those incentives since December 1st, so it's working, but we want to make sure that's a big way in which we're going to measure the success of this. We're also going to be working, and I've been mentioning this since I got here, and we were really in the midst of public hearings around this new zoning ordinance. We want a graphic version of the code. Zoning ordinances are legal documents, always are. That's always the case. And so everywhere they can be difficult to navigate. We want to make it easier for people to navigate. So we're going to do an illustrated guide to the zoning ordinance, or an illustrated version of it. I used to call it a graphic novel version. It's kind of like that, so that we make the zoning ordinance easier for people to understand, anyone in the city. And that's our commitment always, is to try to not just speak to people that already understand these things, people that have all the technical background. We want to make it understandable to anyone. And then permitting and inspections are a big part of our customer service business. Just to reinforce, we bring in about $15 million a year in revenue through the planning department and our permitting operations. We see that as a customer service business. And so every interaction we have is important to us in terms of how people leave that interaction feeling that the city's really good at what it does and really cares about them. Things that are coming up, I'll just highlight a few of these things. Pathways implementation is a big thing. So we started the mobility and public spaces team within planning recently. That was one of Jessica's responsibilities. And so we're getting geared up to work closely with parks, where we'll be spearheading the development of pathways that are not in parks, and then working with parks for those that are. That will be a big focus this year to get, and we're looking at specific places in the city that we can start really having people see what these things are and how important they can be to their community, and building that momentum around pathways. The Lust District development of affordable housing. This is what will end up being multiple blocks there in the Lust District with Boise State University. It's exciting because it does give the city and Boise State an opportunity to demonstrate how do you do super high quality housing that's for low income people. And I'll mention the entitlement permitting and inspections fee study this year we're out with an RFP now to get some help on it, but we're going to look at all of our fees. This hasn't been done in many years in the city. So there's supposed to be a relationship between your cost of providing the service and what your fee is. So we want to bring that relationship into alignment. Now's a good time to do it with this new zoning ordinance. Our services have shifted a little bit, so we'll have the perfect time right now to really look at the costs that there is for us to provide these services, and then what should the fee be. Believe me, it will be important to us also, that the customer understands this, that they're part of the process, because it's the customer that pays the fee. This isn't something we just decide here. We're going to interact a lot with people that are our customers and studying both the cost and what we charge for it. So thank you for those few minutes, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tim.
Tim, thank you. I have a couple of questions. I'm very curious on the 1,400 units, and obviously you don't have to have this right now, but what the housing breakdown. So some of it, I know the city is paying full freight for, some of it's a public-private partnership. So what that breaks down as, and maybe this is Maureen. And then what's the strategic purpose of each of those projects? And then I'm curious about the training for the planning staff on the new zoning code. I know there was a lot of conversation and public hearing ahead of that, but like how are we making sure that the staff is up to date on the new things?
Mayor, Councilmember Willits, thank you. And you'll hear from Maureen very soon to get to your questions about housing. She'll go in depth into those very shortly. With regard to the new zoning ordinance, we implemented, as you know, on December 1st. There was in the last year, a huge effort and undertaking by Jessica Zelag and her team to prepare for December 1st. So it didn't start, of course, on December 1st. It started really in the summer as we were coming to council for approval of the ordinance. And it's really a remarkable thing. I have to say that there's not many cities that completely change their ordinance. I mean, yes, you change aspects of it. To completely replace your ordinance with a new set of regulations and entirely change your processes almost never happens. And this group was able to get, and this is through the training, Councilmember Willets, you mentioned. They prepared so hard for December 1st that we're now getting close to 60 days into implementation. And I don't want to generate any calls right here, but I haven't gotten one complaint. Not a single one. Now I know some people are dialing up now hearing me say that, but it is remarkable. I've only gotten compliments on the new process. The regulations are one thing, the process is another, and the process is what the staff is managing to get people, and the volume of submittals has gone up dramatically. So imagine that. You've got a whole new process and you got way more customers, and somehow they're managing it. And it's not easy and there's plenty of stress. But I will say, council member, in response to that, the training that led up to December 1st made that work, made December 1st work. But it's going to be a constant, as you know, it's going to be a constant process of training. We'll have new people come in. We're still learning. There'll be bumps in the road, but training was really fundamental to this working.
Madam Mayor, follow up. Tim, you didn't get thanked. Everybody else is getting thanked. Just want to thank you for your work.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And Rebecca Hupp with the airport. So we're now moving into the two divisions. The airport is fully an enterprise fund, and then Public Works is both general fund and enterprise fund department. And that's why we have these two at the end. Welcome.
Well, good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Congratulations to all of you on your election. I'm looking forward to working with you over the next year, and we have some exciting things happening at the airport. I expect you all probably have been through the airport in the last year or two and recognize that there's a number of things that are happening there. I want to just touch on a couple of points I think that are unique to the airport. First, we truly are a regional asset. Everyone who travels commercially in and out of this valley travels out of the Boise airport. In fact, probably about 80% of all of the passengers, air passengers who are coming into the state come in through the Boise airport. So that's something that is incredibly important to our team. And we recognize the fact that we are both the first and last impression of visitors to our community. And so we take that very seriously. And when you think about the airport, most people think about passenger travel, which of course is incredibly important, but we are so much more than just commercial service. There's over 200 tenants at the airport, including the Air National Guard, medical, evacuation, backcountry, general aviation, corporate users, the National Interagency Fire Center. So really a wide variety of things and tenants at the airport. And when we think about our work, we really divide it into three distinct sections. Of course, safety is paramount, and that is, the bare minimum standard. But beyond that, we like to think about developing air service and aviation infrastructure to meet the needs of our community. Then we think about our role as an economic partner as well. And then also being a community partner to a variety of different stakeholders. And so the way that we do that are through all of these different sections that you see here on this slide. As the mayor mentioned, we are an enterprise fund, meaning all of the revenue that is generated through the airport operation stays at the airport. We do not use any general tax funds. Most of our funds come through the FAA for capital developments through the Airport Improvement Program through the Federal Aviation Administration, through passenger facility charges that are charged onto an airline ticket, and then primarily through revenue that's generated at the airport from things like parking and fees that we charge to airlines, car rentals, and other tenants at the airport. And I think we probably all have felt that Boise has grown dramatically in the last couple of years. And not only Boise, but the entire surrounding community has grown dramatically. So we've grown 17% since we've recovered from the pandemic, which sounds like a huge number, but when you think about it and you put it into real numbers, there's 700,000 more passengers going through the Boise airport today than there were in 2019, which was our previous peak. So we're working very diligently to make sure that we are ready to accommodate that, and I'll touch on a few of those things as well. You've probably received some communication from me about some of the projects that we're working on that we'll talk more about in greater detail in the future, I'm sure. The first is the design for Concourse A. We currently have a request for qualifications out for engineering and architecture services to help us design Concourse A. That will be an entirely new concourse of about 10 gates. We also are getting ready to break ground on a new consolidated car rental facility that will be adjacent to the terminal building. We have the equipment stage. We've been doing some of the groundwork and foundation work. That is a 2-year construction project that is in process. We also have a request for proposals out for new concessions for both food and beverage and retail and gift. Those will be 2 separate proposals, and we would expect that that will start this year. And then partner construction projects include a fuel farm that the airlines will be building. And we're also going to continue our focus on development of non-aeronautical property. So those are just a few of the things that we'll be working on. I look forward to sharing more details at future council workshops, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Rebecca. That is a startling statistic, 700,000 more people. I think I see them in the waiting line at the cell phone line. So I know this is a challenge. I'm curious if you've come up with any solutions on how not to have that line spill out to the freeway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willits. I'm happy to share more information with the council at a future date, but we do have a definitive plan. I think one of the things that we were working towards was having the new parking garage open. And then we're actually moving some of our stakeholder groups. We do have some thoughts on a new location for cell phone waiting and some data that we can share with council at a future time. So I would look forward to that.
Madam Mayor, I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Rebecca, when I first started, we were just moving from one, I'm going to use the term wrong, one scale of airport to another. Was it 1 to 2?
So FAA categorizes airports as large hub, medium hub, small hub, and non-hub. And Boise for many years was what we'd like to call a super small. We were one of the larger small hubs. And then during COVID, we actually transitioned into that next larger category of medium hub, which changes some of our funding mechanisms and the formulas that FAA provides to us. It also changes some of our regulatory requirements and responsibilities as it relates to competition amongst the airlines and some of the other passenger services that we provide. So yes, you are remembering that correctly. We are now officially a medium hub.
And with some of that growth, like, are we like right in the middle of it? Are we still kind of barely on the edge between the small and medium, or where are we positioned as far as the size goes?
So I want to say there's probably about 70 small hubs, and we were always in the top 5. And there's about 30 medium hubs, and we're usually about the 4th or 5th from the bottom. So medium hub goes up to about 10 million passengers, roughly 10 to 12 million passengers. And we're probably more in the 2.5 million passengers. So we're definitely at the smaller end of the larger airports.
Great. Well, I appreciate all the work that it's taken with that big transition and the continued future thinking as we do grow and grow kind of further into that category. It seems like you're always a couple steps ahead of the game. So appreciate all that hard work.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, one more.
Yeah.
Rebecca, you're right. If people are coming by air, the airport is the first thing that they see. It's their first experience. And thank you for making it easy. I mean, the Boise airport is an easy airport to navigate. And thank you for all that you did, especially during the construction with the valet parking and like trying to help people manage all of the change. it makes a difference. And when you tell people, hey, I'm from Boise, they're always like, I love that place. That is really easy to fly in and out of. And that's you and your team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. I do want to say that it's often the first experience people have of Boise. So that's really an important point. And that's why you heard arts and history talk about the arts and history investments that'll be made in that person there. That will, create a sense of place and demonstrate to those that live here and those that are visiting here who we are, who we were, and who we, aspire to be. It matters with concessions that Rebecca's working on and all of those pieces and construction. So we will at some point have an overview of all that's happening at the airport. And want to flag too that when Rebecca says the continued development of non-aeronautical property, that's the economic development work we're doing where we've put land out that can't be for housing, it's flyover land, so it's ought to be for something. And the airport has been a great partner in putting that out for industrial, like small scale industrial manufacturing development. And we're seeing those factories open now and will for the coming years. So it's very much a key player across so many different departments that often we don't think about.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And last but not least, Steve Burgos, Public Works.
Madam Mayor, council members, it's not lost on me that I'm the last director between you and lunch, so I'm going to keep this short. My name is Steve Burgos. I'm the Public Works Director, and thank you for having me. Public Works, in alignment with the mayor's vision to create a city for everyone, we're really focused on that clean city for everyone. And you can see there the core community services that we provide are really focused on that. Just quickly, overview of those core services, and sometimes folks talk about them as utilities. Our water renewal services is our used water treatment utility. We treat about 30 million gallons a day of used water, which is about 10 billion gallons a day, 10 billion gallons a year of used water. And we do that at two major facilities, our West Boise facility by the HP campus and the Lander Street facility that's over by off of Veterans Memorial Parkway. We also have our materials management utility. That's all of our trash, compost, recycling, glass recycling. Those programs are all part of materials management. We are currently diverting about 42% of all the solid waste that we collect across the city, including commercial. We divert about 42% of that away from the landfill to some other beneficial use. We also have the geothermal, which is an enterprise fund as well. That's our heating system downtown. We're really proud of the geothermal system. It's the nation's largest geothermal system. And also in Public Works, we have the irrigation program. It's a very small irrigation system that's located in West Boise. We also do facilities program and project management. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And we also own and operate the city streetlights. And then we support all of those utilities and services that we have with some shared internal services. And those include our engineering group that provides engineering services to water renewal services, materials management, and geothermal. And then we also have our finance administration folks that do the utilities rate setting. So all of our financial planning occurs within Public Works, and we coordinate that with DFA. And then finally, we have a new part of our organization that we're integrating this year is organizational strategy and planning, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. What to know about Public Works? We're kind of a different type of Public Works, and that's somewhat related, not somewhat, is very related to the expectations that our citizens have of the services that we provide. And so within Public Works, we house our Climate Action Division. That's all of our climate work across the city that we do. We have the geothermal system that I talked about. We have a compost service that we provide. That's one of the only in the valley of compost. We do all of our energy planning, and then the city facilities. I'll talk about that here in a second. The other thing to note about Public Works is a lot of our work is very dynamic. About 20 years ago in Public Works, it was pretty slow and steady. That is definitely not the case today. Every part of our work, every aspect of our work is changing. So things like recycling used water, we weren't doing that 20 years ago. We weren't even considering that. Now is becoming a focus of Public Works. Renewable energy, we're at a time in our city's history where we have aging infrastructure that we need to start replacing. And then construction pricing has been a challenge, a big challenge for us, and we'll talk more about that in the coming year, but that's something that we're actively trying to mitigate, and we have different strategies that we'll talk to council about. All of that dynamic work requires us to adjust the organization, both how we're set up to do the work, but also the business practices that we need to meet the moment. So that's another big part of the coming year is updating the business practices. And then last but not least, the citywide project support. You heard from many of the directors that there are planning processes. You heard from Jessica in the library, chief and police. They're doing some facility planning. We are the one-stop shop in Public Works for all the planning, design, construction, and operations of city facilities. That's important because that helps us standardize approaches across the city and hopefully delivers more predictability for you all and efficiency for how we provide those services across the city. Current focus areas, we are really focused on the implementation phase of the climate action roadmap. That was the plan basically for climate action that we developed several years ago. Over the last couple of years, we've been really focused on the implementation front. I won't read all of these, but two that jump out, the community engagement side. We can't solve all the climate issues for the community through the city. We do need to have the community involved. A big point of emphasis this year is to get folks more engaged in what they can do to help us out. We continue with our renewable energy contracts with Idaho Power. We're hopeful to have a signed contract here by the end of September to power the airport and the Lander Street facility with 100% clean electricity. And the cool thing about that is that those contracts, other folks in the community are asking about how they can get access to that. How did we do that? And so we're working with Idaho Power to expand those programs. Moving over to the right, we have major design and construction projects at our water renewal facilities. Both at West Boise and Lander Street. Lander Street was built in the late 40s. We just need to replace that over the coming years. Big projects are happening there. I mentioned the recycled water program. We're committed to all major new capacity that we bring online within water renewal to be recycled water. And so that's part of our longer term climate strategy related to water resilience. We're excited about that. In effect, we'll be creating drought-proof water supply. We are going to get into the solid waste strategic planning. Boiseans love their solid waste programs. I think it's because they handle it every day and they're interacting with it. We're going to be starting with community engagement as part of that process to really understand the expectations of the citizens around the solid waste programs. And then last but not least, we're going to implement the Public Works reorganization. We're excited about this. Again, meeting the moment. We need to adjust how we do our work. We have a lot of big challenges coming our way. And so that reorganization will be implemented this year. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Steve.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Steve, I was really glad to see the community engagement bullet point there on kind of one of the things that you're focusing on. I think that the city is doing such a good job in leading the way with your team, with the construction that we're doing, with all these different projects. And I don't always feel like the rest of the community is following that lead. And I think that there's an opportunity, I think, for a direct invitation and a really clear pathway for them to follow, because we are doing the work. We're making a tremendous amount of progress, and I think we need that community momentum behind us as well. I hope that our new modern zoning code helps with some of that, some of the incentives that we have there. I hope that some conversations about even some of our historic districts and some of the types of building supplies and things that we can do with solar panels that maybe we haven't really been able to look into in the past kind of helps us along those ways. But I would love to learn how council can be supportive in getting the community moving in pace with the city, because the city's moving at an incredible pace and doing such a good job.
Madam Mayor, thank you, council member. Yes, it's a big point of emphasis. And part of it, I think, as scientists, engineers, we're behind the scenes. We do our work. If we're not on the front page, we're happy type attitudes of the past. And we really need to change that. And so thank you for the comment, and we will be letting council know how we can get y'all involved.
And Madam Mayor, just one more thing I just remembered. I had promised the Youth Climate Action Committee that if there was anything that City Council was hearing that might be interesting for them to see in the public process. And so that might be something for us to have on our radar. If we do have something from Public Works, water renewal, something that really is focused on the environment, and they want to see how council interacts with that in a live session, I need to make sure that I invite them to it. So keep me in the loop.
Will do.
Steve, thank you. You have a lot on your plate and appreciate what you do. I'm curious how Public Works helps other communities within the county and our region. Largest city, we have a lot of expertise. You know, if you've gone to any sort of city conferences, we're really lucky in the city of Boise, because in other cities, their council is trying to do this. So how are we sharing best practices with our neighbors?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willis, thank you for the question. And we do get phone calls, and where we can provide support and encouragement to the other communities, we're willing to do that. And we do that through things like, I have a call with the other public works directors in the Valley every other week for a half hour. We're comparing notes, and I'll get a question on that call. Hey, can you tell me more about the compost program? How did you roll that out? What were the finances behind that? Frankly, we learned from some of the other communities as well. There's other communities, like in the eastern part of the state, that are doing some really cool work around water that they share with us. So yeah, we have a lot of interaction with those other departments in the Valley, and it's been encouraging because they have been asking about our climate work. And sometimes maybe we don't think that some of the other communities are as engaged or as curious, but they ask us, and we have a lot of interaction with those other cities.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
To wrap up, I'm going to ask that Courtney come back up. She will close us out before we take a break for lunch and then come back for our noon meeting. And I trust that you've been taking, as Councilmember Willett said, copious notes as
Madam
we
Mayor,
seek to make
members-
sure that we chart out the work sessions and other presentations that are needed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Since it's still our first day of school, you might as well know I have a hard time reading my own handwriting. So I'll do the best I can. I do want to thank you for acknowledging the hard and challenging and rewarding work of all of our departments. I think the city delivers exceptional service, and hopefully you got a snapshot into who these folks are, who are dedicated both to our values and continuing to improve upon our service delivery. I'm often asked about my job, and I usually like to give examples of things I write down in any given day, like a zoo animal died, the airport doesn't have any water, fire got a grant. So the nature of your questions and comments are very big and small at the same time, which is what I find really interesting about the city. For today, I learned BPD has a rock band to convince people to interact with the police. And from you all, I learned that you have a passion for an ERP system. I didn't anticipate, but I will return with information associated with that. So thank you for your patience today. I'll just go over a couple things. Rest assured, I do have all the details, but next week you'll get a comprehensive update on climate action, housing and homelessness, and Councilmember Willits, that will include the units, the breakdown of the strategic purpose, and which ones the city has developed versus which ones we have fostered. We'll also talk about transportation and the various aspects of that the city is engaged in. And then in February, I have penciled in a zone and code rewrite training for you all. So it was relevant to your question, Councilmember Willits. The Office of Police Accountability will come before you in the end of February, and I'll schedule a work session for Energize our neighbors. And when the city's ready to bring an artificial intelligence policy and guidance associated with that, I'm happy to bring that before you. And then I do think, particularly in our budget build process, we need to talk about vacancies, compensation strategy, benefits, workforce trends, and the approach the city is going to take. One of the key pieces, particularly in police, that wasn't mentioned today that we'll bring back is retirements. We can't just make people work forever. They do actually retire. And this is particularly true in public safety, where groups of people come in at the same time. Groups of people tend to leave at the same time. So in a discussion with Chief Weiniger, I was like, how can we keep adding like 14 people and still be short? The retirement impact on public safety is significant, and something I would encourage you to understand as we get into the numbers. We'll do an ERP deep dive, but I have the sense that you'd like to see the strategic approach to technology replacement and modernization of the city's operations. We will bring back the public records process. That is currently handled in 2 locations. The police department has their own system and the city has a system. And I believe there's some both efficiencies, cost-saving measures, and then improvement and transparency in those spaces. I will give you an update on Wi-Fi in the parks. And I'll ask my friends in internal audit to make sure they bring recommendations for improved processes in their reporting to council. I think we could probably make that an annual review just to make sure they have the opportunity and the space to make those improvements. I have a note about looking a bit more into affordability and the creative economy. And for the library, I'm sure the library and their employees appreciate the support you've given them today. I think there are other opportunities, probably beyond what Councilmember Halliburton offered. If you want to get more involved, I'm sure Kathy Grismeyer, our Government Affairs Director, can help you in those spaces. But in the meantime, I'd encourage you to reach out to our employees and our trustees in that space during this time. The library will bring the information about public space and the facilities plan, a timeline update on the facilities plan, a description of the request for reconsideration, and more about the mental health investment. I have a note from BPD that we should get the lessons learned from our investment in mental health from our first responders to share with the rest of the city and see where we might further invest, in addition to information about the behavioral health teams. At the airport, you want the plan to fix the cell phone waiting area. And then we'll come back, as Steve indicated, with the community engagement plan on climate. And with that, I'm certainly open to anything else you may have thought of or something I may not have captured.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm sure that you have it on your radar, but I do think there was a request for the Pathways Plan presentation for new council members. Also, I think the chief might have been a member of that band.
Yeah, I think it was.
And I think there's a video somewhere.
I'm
that
afraid
proves that.
to ask the name of said band. Johnny Law was the name of the band, if anyone was wondering. Sorry about that, Councilmember. Pathways is scheduled for mid-February.
Do you have anything? Thank you.
Maybe just a thank you to Courtney. Everybody
Oh,
else got a
thank you for thanking me. It's fantastic.
A couple things before we recess. Yeah, thanks for that thorough overview. Some of the things, as you heard, were in the works and already planned, and the rest that we'll get scheduled on the calendar working with leadership. I want to thank all of our team that's here today that presented, and thank your staff as well. Please extend those thanks. A great overview of the depth and scope of service and work that the city does. And I appreciated the refresher, as I'm sure those that are returning did, as well as the new information for our newest members, and look forward to seeing you all again at these upcoming work sessions or presentations that we'll be scheduling. Thank you all very much.